In our comment section, one of our subscribers asked this, and this is one that's a little bit hard to understand, and I guess that's why she asked it. She says, it'd be great in the future if you could give a lesson where you talk about the ways in which we can unify a painting. That unify word sometimes scares people. Let's take the fright out of it. All right, we talk about unity all the time. Got to have unity here, got to have unity there. Unity simply means everything belongs. It belongs. And in a painting, that's exactly what we mean. Things belong. But we have ways we make them belong. These are three major ways that artists will use to make everything in a painting feel that it really should be there. And that's the whole thing. So we use things that are similarities. Now I've given you here two examples. I've shown this is an abstract by Kandinsky, and this is a realistic painting by Richard Schmid. So, and it's just sort of accidental that they happen to be in the same color scheme, which really is not even the point. But I want to show you how each of those has used things to create unity. Use these methods right here. Use similarities, use repetitions, in some cases use alternations. So I'll maybe explain those as we go. All right, what do we mean by use similarities? It could be the similarity of motif. There are enough things that the majority of things that are in here are similar in motif. And you see that in all kinds of things, especially see it in things like flower arranging and quilt making. It's just one of those universal principles that we use to create good art. And you can see here the motif that is used, kind of these geometric shapes. In this case, he's sort of almost cartooned the shapes a bit and made them really hard edge, smooth edge, most of the shapes, and he's repeated that motif. And we can also see another thing he's done. Those are all similar, by the way. The shapes are in some way similar to each other. But then we can see he's used repetition. Now, repetition is a wonderful way to create unity. There's all kinds of things that you can repeat. In this case, Kandinsky has repeated this color, gets repeated a lot throughout. This color gets repeated throughout. This color is similar to this color. So there's similarity, repetition. Now all the visual elements that we use, shape, color, value, direction of things go, texture, all those visual elements that we use as the painting language can be used in similar form, similarities of each other, and can be used in repetition. Alternation means that when you have two things together that are different, you repeat that pattern. So we have a little bit of alternation here. This similar pattern gets repeated here, here, here. So that's a similar way of using alternation, and it's kind of repeated over here. Now we can see that in the realistic work, Richard Schmid has done a similar thing. We see that this color, he's used this similar color almost throughout the painting, almost as a dominant color. But at the same time, he's taken this color and he's repeated it. Now this color is different. I'm not calling these by color names, I'm just pointing out the fact that they're different. This color is different from this color and this color. But you can see, we see a lot of it here, but we see it repeated. We see it repeated here, 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 here. He squeezed it in. Richard Schmid is great at doing that, just squeezing a repetition of color in little places where you might not even notice it, but it's the fact that it's there helps to create the unity. Now, those are just three of the most used ways that artists will create unity. Unity means, as I said before, everything feels that it belongs. And so I want to show you just a little bit of a demonstration here, not very much, but just a little bit of a demonstration about how we make those decisions. So I'll put this back up here just so that we can keep our eyes on those methods. And I want to put here, now here's a typical, oh well, you might say not necessarily typical. That's just a photograph. But the reason I chose this photograph, of course it's a photograph. The reason I chose this photograph is because it's got lots of greens in it. In greens, the way a lot of people will use greens is very typical of how things can fall out of unity. They separate. They feel separate from each other. When passages of green are just have green within them, without anything else that's in a scene being repeated. In other words, we see opportunities for repeating. We can see this color, this sort of orange, red-orange color. We can see the opportunities for repeating it here, here, here. And then if we could find opportunities to repeat it in the greens themselves, that would help unify the greens with the rest of the thing, the piece. So I want to show you just a little bit of how you can do that. And so I've just put on the palette here the colors that I see. We see lots of yellow greens and we see blue greens. Blue greens in the deeper shadow parts and the yellow greens. And then we see this is the red violet, and this is the sap green I've used here. And this is the Rembrandt transparent oxide red that is a red-orange. Did I say red violet? I meant red-orange. And then I've used the blue here. We see the blue, a little bit of blue in the sky, and then we will see some blue-green. So blue plus yellow-green will give us blue-green. Well, I don't need to go into all of that, but that's simply for this particular quick tip. That's simply to show you how we think that through. So I'm going to just kind of do a very rough, not my purpose is not to do a painting for you. I just want to do a very rough little placement here of some of those colors to show you how we could unify those colors and not have the green separate out from the other colors. And so I'll just start with I'll just put just a very, very rough little indication here. So say if the building were right there, the front of the building would be right there, and then the roof of that building is pretty much straight down. That's pretty much the eye level we'll see there, and then we see the roof of the building. Oh, that's not like it is. I don't have that. That's not true at all. See, this is true. This is more true right here. Okay, and then that roof of the building goes back something like that right there. All right, now, so we're going to show those greens. So if we were putting, let's put just enough of the color of the building in to show sort of what that would be. So we get the shadow portion of that building. That's a very neutral of the building itself, but we can also unify that. So the shadow portion of that building might look something like this, where I'll just do just a little bit. I'm not going to do the whole thing like that. Now here is a good opportunity to unify that. I'll get to the greens in a minute. So we already see that we're going to have some of that. Why not have, and I did right here in that shadow portion, you see, where I had some of this red-orange reflecting in it, which will help unify. Now I move on into that light portion where the light is hitting. That's where the shadow is hitting. So I'll move back over into where the light was hitting, and let's get that. Keep that hue here in this portion of that building. And that probably needs to be just a little bit lighter. Let's move over. This is my value line I'm working here. There are other quick tips on the value line. So sometimes people watching a quick tip for the first time might not realize that we have a bunch of them. So a lot of times the questions I ask, the answer on the comments might indicate that you could go other places to find quick tips to explain areas I'm working with. Okay, so we get this a little bit lighter there. Now you see I've got a little bit of this red-orange coming through. This is a way of repeating a color. Of course I haven't got this color here yet. Another way of repeating a color is to let some of that color show through a neutral. That is a wonderful way, rather than just mix gray. A lot of people mix gray, black and white. They paint this gray, they paint this orange, they paint this whatever, and then green, and the whole thing, it's not unified. It just colors separate out from each other. So this is how I'm suggesting to you. One way I'm suggesting to you that artists will unify a painting with color. Now, color's not the only thing that's going to unify it, but it's one of the most important things, I think. So this is what I'm talking about. I continue that thing on as I move across over here and over here, that sort of thing. But then the roof of the thing, is where we see that color. We'll see that different color, and that's a very light color. And let's see, then we just give that some indication here, and didn't have enough paint on the brush. Some indication here. Now, so, okay, I've got a little bit of that blue showing through there. And there's another thing we can do. Now, we got that major color of the roof, of that reddish orange. But then we also have that blue of the sky, which in fact would be reflecting in the reddish orange. And I need to get that a little bit lighter, or at least throw a little bit more light on there. There we go, something like that. And so there's another place that we can unify. Unify by allowing some of the blue that we see in the sky reflect, because it will be reflecting. That sky color will be reflecting there. All right, so we have the blue in the sky. We have this color that is so different from all the other colors. We have this neutral that we normally think of as no color. And we have the sky that's up here, this blue. So the sky can be reflecting here. That gives that unity, while at the same time the major part of that color fills that red-orange, that well, it's a low intensity red-orange. You know, just do enough of that to indicate to you what you can do there. All right, so in the sky colors up here, then that's repeated in here, and we got and so on. So that's the idea, is to find ways to meld color. When you're mixing your color, find the ways to meld that color so that the colors that you see elsewhere can be reflected into colors that you have in particular images. And in reality, colors do reflect that way. And we see colors, we'll see colors reflecting one into another. And when we look at them, they don't feel isolated. Then when we paint them, we fail to see that. Now, I'm going to go in those greens now and show you, because that's where I started. So we will go into the, and just do a section of that to show you how we now could richen the whole green concept by repeating some of this into green and without it being obvious. So I'm going to get a kind of a blue-green here. So that appears about right, back right here. All right, so we'll just push it right up next to that building. And about right in here like that. And then I see that shadow area, because there are lots of things that go in the way we're thinking things through when we're painting. That shadow area, the way the light is shining, that shadow area goes up like this. And this is something I like to do when I'm first blocking in a painting, is I like to indicate where the shadow area is first. I'll just show you that process too. Okay, we've got to bump that in here, bump that in there, blah, 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 blah. Bump that right here, blah, 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 blah. Now, then we begin to build into that light area. This is an opportunity. In fact, the shadow areas might be an opportunity too. So, but we're not quite there yet. All right, so in the lighter areas, what I can do, and we have this and we have the road. And we have, if I wanted to use that tree trunk, that's pretty lousy composition, but I could. But what I can do, when I pick up that middle value of green to begin to show those lights, I can also add to it just a stroke of that red-orange, and watch what will happen then. So we have a little bit of the red-orange showing through right there, and that begins to work well. So you don't notice the red-orange showing through, because it feels a part of the whole composition. So there, I'll do that again. Now I'll begin to build towards the light, and I'll pick up just a little bit of that red-orange in there and let that a little bit of the red-orange pop through right in there. And then as I build up closer and closer to the light. Now some of you are going to complain that I didn't put the sky in. It's not a painting. This is to show you a process of thinking, and a technical. What I'm doing here is technical. It's process of thinking, but it's a technical thing too, where as you're building a painting, you can build unity in. It's not something you wait to the last minute to do. And so, no, we don't want to overdo that kind of stuff. We overdo it, and then it begins to look overdone. It begins to look hokey if you overdo it. So, but that is the sort of thing you can do. See, some places you can let it show a little bit more, but as long as it's not overdone, it feels like it belongs. And remember the definition of unity, or the overall, and the best definition I've found yet of unity is that of belonging. Okay, so it doesn't mean that some areas of this could be, some areas of the green might not need that in it. So you sort of, you allow your sense of composition to sort of guide you when you're doing that sort of thing. I can throw a little bit in right there. Now, you see the process, the thinking process. Well, you can also use a repetition of color when you have things like tree trunks and branches and things like that. Things that fall more in the neutral. Something's bothering me here. I can't stand an edge. This is just a little demo. That edge is entirely too too harsh there. So suppose right up in here, let's say that we can actually see a tree trunk there. We can build that tree trunk. Let's just wash this green out of the brush. We can build tree trunks and branches using some of that same color. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Remember how Richard Schmid, in the still life we saw, he had colors repeated as they were moving on. Tiny bits of repetition. It doesn't have to be much, just enough to feel unity. All right, so I could go into this red-orange. It's the hue of red-orange that needs to be repeated. It can be repeated in any value. It can be repeated in a variation of saturation or intensity. But the visual part of it calls for some sort of repetition. And so if we went right in here and we wanted to build a tree trunk in, I could pick up a little bit, I could get it a little bit less saturated, add a little bit of blue to it, and say this is a tree trunk and it's tucked back into shadow. Let's say it's right here. I just made this up. All right, there you go. Now I've repeated this color. I couldn't make that a little less obvious. So some of you are going to say, but what about local color? Yeah, local color is something that we really observe, but we don't make ourselves a slave. While we're interpreting local color, we're also composing a painting. And so if we want a painting that's really unified, then we make adjustments as painters, as artists. We make adjustments to create that unity. I'm going to do just a little bit more here. I'm going to make this lean a little bit more towards a neutral, but I'm going to let it be, as you see right here in this mixture. I'm mixing the blue with the red-orange. Blue, and that is a compliment, but I'm going to let that red-orange be a little bit more dominant. And let's just put a little bit of that, have a little bit of light shining on that trunk. You see, now begin to build that, and we begin to have that repetition of color, or we might better say repetition of hue. Now you see, having those red oranges not obvious, but having them present in that green also pulls the green in and makes it feel more unified, just in that little spot right there. So I think I've done enough there to show you that when you're painting, you want to keep the thing unified. One really important way that painters use to unify a painting is simply that business of finding ways and places to repeat color. And if you're one of those people who has trouble with greens, could be that your greens are just too green. Maybe you need other colors kind of hidden inside those greens to give them a little bit more richness. Be sure to view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianneMize.com where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.